TOEFL listening is hard. You hear 2 conversations and 3 lectures, and all are between 3 and 5 minutes long. That's a lot of information to try to remember. Plus, you don't see the questions until the recording is over, so you don't know what you will be asked. Therefore, it's super important to take notes. But how? There are good ways of taking notes and bad ways. The good ways make your score go up. The bad ways make it go down. You must take notes that allow you to give a high-scoring answer. And this is what I'm going to show you in this video. I will tell you my 8 top tips on how to take effective notes in TOEFL listening. By the way, guys, if you're going to take your TOEFL soon, check out my TOEFL materials. There I teach you everything you need to score high. I show you how to give high-scoring answers, and of course we do many practice tests together, so you will feel confident for your test. You can find the link in the description box. And now let's get started. Let's start with tip number 1. Don't write everything down. Many TOEFL students often try to write down as much as possible when they first take notes in TOEFL listening. That's normal, but it isn't efficient. If you take lots of notes, you start to pay more attention to the writing and miss important ideas. And that's a problem because you must be able to answer the questions. Therefore, you need to write down just enough to trigger your memory later. These notes are only used for a few minutes after the listening section, and they are destroyed at the end of the test. They only need to refresh your memory for the time you're answering the questions. All you need to write are the most important words that help you remember. Focus on nouns and essential verbs. You don't need to write down details or filler words. For example, if you hear about a beautiful castle that was built during the 17th century in the southern part of France, you don't want to write this. Instead, ask yourself, what are the important points? Here, the important points are that this is about a castle that was built during the 17th century in the southern part of France. Note that I don't even use complete words. Sen is century and S is southern. Ideas like beautiful are nice, but when I see castle, I remember that the discussion was about one that was beautiful. All I need is enough to trigger my memory about what the speaker was discussing. Second, in TOEFL listening, it's extremely important to organize your ideas. This saves you a lot of time, which means that you can focus better on the recording, and this will increase your score. Let's start with how to take notes for conversations. You will hear 2 conversations between a man and a woman in the listening section. For these, make a simple table and mark the speakers like this. Put comments from one speaker on one side and comments from the other speaker on the other side. That way, you don't have to write man or speaker 1 for every point made by the man. So you have to write less and can focus better on what's going on in the recording. Now, let's check out how to take notes for lectures. There is a lot of information in each of the lectures, so you should use a different method of organization. Write each main idea and the supporting details on separate lines. First, you write down the first main idea and important details for this idea the lecturer gives. Then you write down the second main idea and important details for this idea. This way you keep the information clearly separated so you can find it easily. It will also make it a lot easier for you to answer questions about the organization of the lecture. Tip number 3 is about how to speed up your note-taking. Speed is crucial as it ensures you don't lose track of what's going on in the recording. You must focus on the listening, not the writing. To take notes fast, use symbols. It doesn't matter what symbols you use. You just need to be able to understand what you mean. For example, I use a sideways arrow to show cause and effect. This is especially important for lectures, as the professor often talks about causes and effects. Be a bit creative here. You can use an up arrow to show an increase and a down arrow to show a decrease. You can also put a star next to points that the speaker stresses are important. Practice using some simple symbols when preparing for TOEFL listening, because it will really boost your writing speed. The next point applies especially to conversations, but it's also relevant for lectures. Pay attention to the speaker's voice. Ask yourself whether you hear hesitation or approval. If you hear something that shows a certain strong opinion, mark it down. Use a plus sign like this to show approval and a minus sign like this to show opposition. It doesn't take much time to make a plus or minus sign, and it's extremely helpful later when answering the questions. By the way, guys, if you find this video helpful, hit the like button. Also, comment down below whether you want to have more videos about TOEFL listening. Write yes if you want more. If you want me to talk about something else, tell me your video wish in the comments. I would love to know. Now, let's have a look at 4 more tips for effective note-taking in TOEFL listening. Now you know that you should organize your notes and use abbreviations and symbols. But what exactly do you have to write down? Many TOEFL students are overwhelmed in TOEFL listening because there is so much information to listen to and they don't know which points are important. This is where tip number 5 comes in, because it helps you figure out the important points. Guys, there are certain words in the recording that hint at what you have to write down. What am I talking about? Linking words. They are crucial for your score. The lectures in TOEFL listening have standard structures. They use lots of linking words to show changes in topic. And that's super important because linking words indicate what the speaker is talking about next. For example, the paragraphs may start each idea with first, second and third. However is used to show contrast and for instance is used to introduce an example. Therefore, it's really useful to learn how different linking words are used. If you listen for them, you can see when a new idea is being introduced or whether there are limits to a claim. These listening clues will help you know which statements are important to include and which are minor details. In other words, they help you focus on what to write down when taking notes, and this will help you figure out the correct answers later. The next tip refers to something that TOEFL students often forget to do. And that's bad, because this really helps you navigate your notes to find the correct answers fast. In TOEFL listening, you hear many lectures and conversations in a row, so you will take notes for different conversations and lectures on your sheet of paper or whiteboard. This can easily become confusing, and it can get really problematic if you have to search through your notes to find the right information. Avoid this problem by drawing a line to separate the new notes from what you have written so far. If you have time to erase your board, great. However, the pace is fast. It's easier just to make a clear X through everything that is done, so you don't waste any time looking at notes from the wrong passage. Now, let's have a look at a note-taking mistake that will make your score go down like this. Sometimes TOEFL students think it's easier to take notes in their native language. Guys, don't do this. There are several reasons why taking notes in another language in TOEFL listening is not a good idea. First, you have to switch back and forth translating between languages. If you write in one language, you may take a moment to switch to English to listen to the lecture. You may miss more details when you try using 2 languages at the same time. Second, you may change details when translating. Since there is no time to think of the perfect word, you may write something that is not really the correct meaning. When you go back to look at it later, you may translate it in yet another way. The meaning could completely change. Finally, you may not know what the speaker is talking about at first. You may have to wait until you hear more discussion and examples. That's normal, since the TOEFL topics are often uncommon ones. But if you wait until you are sure of the topic to write it in your native language, you will have missed writing down several important details. Therefore, write down the basic idea that the speaker is talking about in English, even if you can't spell it right or don't know the exact meaning. Just sound it out approximately in English. As you listen and get more details, write them down. In the end of the discussion, you should have a good grasp of the main idea. Lastly, here comes tip number 8. This one is easy to miss. Make sure you don't forget it. Guys, Taking good notes for TOEFL listening requires some practice. You can have the best strategy in the world and a great list of symbols. However, they won't help if you aren't used to using them. Therefore, practice taking notes while listening to things in English. It can be a TOEFL practice test, or it can be a podcast on a subject you like. The more you practice, the better you will get. That's it. That's my 8 top tips for taking notes in TOEFL listening. I hope you guys liked this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified when the next video comes out. Also, share this video with your friends so they can improve their TOEFL score too. See you in the next video!